Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the latest iteration of this MEF webinar series and taking your Thursday afternoon or morning, depending on where you are, to join us and watch this interesting webinar. Today's webinar is entitled How Real-Time Data is Taking a Bite Out of Crime. And with me today, well, let me introduce myself first. My name is Nick Rossman. I'm a program director at MEF, kind of run or oversee the various programs here at MEF, and I specialize on the fraud side or the anti-fraud side of things for MEF. So that's me, and I'd like to welcome Brad Greer, who is VP of Data Solutions at NetNumber. And Brad will be walking us through today's webinar, and I'll be asking the odd question to keep the conversation going. So maybe to kick things off, Brad, you can kind of tell us what's going on in the telecom industry that's making it so necessary to have more and more advanced number intelligence tools, and give us a bit of a breakdown of what it is we're going to be talking about today and what NetNumber is doing to address increasing fraud. So over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick, thanks for having me. It's good to connect again. And thanks everyone for attending the webinar. I really want to talk today about our number check service. And we have grown the service tremendously. And a lot of clients are adopting it. A lot of clients are adopting it for some of that pre-fraud use case, managing efficiency and cutting costs. And so really what I wanted to do is I wanted to get on this webinar and really talk about this service holistically. Many of you are in data or are in some sort of telecom ecosystem. And I wanted to just kind of lay the land that there are two different types of data that anybody across the world is really hunting after. The first one is foundational data. Foundational data plugs and plays on everything that you have. And then there's more, I don't want to say the word fragmented, but I want to say more functional data. Functional data is very specific, usually a specific geography or a specific touch point. Today at Mobile Ecosystem Forum, we're going to be talking about foundational data because NumberCheck, along with our carrier ID service, are both foundational data services. So really, Nick, what we're going to be covering today is I thought maybe we could lay the landscape here a little bit and talk about what NumberCheck really is, where we have it, what it's being used for. And I have a couple awesome case studies that I've actually done with real clients to help them monetize the service and create value. So I thought that would be a good trajectory for today. Does that sound good with you and everyone attending?
Yeah, sure. It certainly does. Look, but maybe just before getting into the brass tacks, as it were, I'm sure a lot of our audience is sophisticated and in the weeds on this. But maybe for those who are tuning in for the first time, could you just spell out or let us know who would use this service? Is it operators, or is it brands, enterprises? Just to give us a sense of that, and then we can dig into more detail around the use cases and how everything works and where you can use it.
Got it. So short answer is any company that has phone numbers running through their ecosystem can use the service. So pretty broad, right? Now let's talk about what the service really is. NumberCheck is a confidence index that we've designed to help you validate and verify phone numbers flowing through your ecosystem. Now, what does that really mean? Most people report their phone numbers, or communication service providers buy their phone numbers from a various source. And then what happens is those phone numbers go through a provisioning event with an operator, right? So what we really done is we've really taken a lot of the data that we've been working with for over 20 years to build a confidence index to just help you know that the phone number is valid and potentially reachable running through your ecosystem. So at a high level, you can send us a phone number in real time. We'll tell you if it's a valid, and we'll give you a confidence on whether we think it's reachable if you message or call it. And that's sitting on a lot of different data in our infrastructure, proprietary to us that you can't get anywhere else. So really, to pivot, I know that most of you are probably curious about the logic, but does that answer your question, Nick, before we dig into that?
Absolutely. And I guess the implication here is that what fraudsters are doing is they're spoofing number ranges, right? So they're using numbers that are invalid, that get through people's networks, and then they use those invalid ranges to do naughty things, right?
Yeah.
So you're proactively filtering out all those number ranges or numbers that you see as being invalid, correct?
Yep, that's correct. And another thing about invalid is sometimes phone numbers just are not in use. They match the short or long code range with whatever country that you're looking at, and they're just not in use. So if a fraudster figures that out and they want to go undetected, they might provide you with that phone number. Or they might provide you with a phone number that they know is disconnected, just to make sure that they go unnoticed, right?
Yeah. I think what's great about that, because what we're hearing on the Met side is that often the industry is tackling the fraud after the fact. So it's happened, it's been reported, and then they retroactively, look at how it got through and try to prevent it. What's really nice about this is that you're actually preventing the number from going through in the first place because you're saying, hey, wait a second, in real time, this number doesn't look right. You should not let that number route through your network, right? I guess that's sort of the proactive solution. And it feels like it would apply to all sorts of fraud then, whether it's, we're hearing a lot about artificially inflated traffic. And we know that fraudsters who inflate traffic artificially often use unallocated ranges of numbers or invalid numbers. So that's a great example there, I think, of how this is really good for preventing that sort of fraud.
Yeah, and another way to think about it, if you are a communication service provider and you have users on your network trying to send a message or make a call to a bad number, that creates a whole lot of anomalies and disturbances, right? You not only have a user that is not trusting their communications, even though they're trying to message a phone number that can't receive messages at this time or isn't active, or making a call that doesn't go through, you're creating all kinds of friction and also back end cost as a communication service provider. So this service really is designed for everyone. We have enterprises using this service to make their call efficiency better on customer service. We have some people even using it for marketing use cases. It's being used a little bit of everywhere, and I'll cover some of that in some case studies that I put together specifically for this audience because I think it's very simple, very basic, a quick and dirty way to validate and verify phone numbers in your ecosystem. And that's why we created it, because we believe in everybody having phone number intelligence for all. So we wanted a very simple system that everyone could easily integrate and just cut out the static in their phone numbers.
Great. I mean, so I feel like I've taken you off on a bit of a tangent. Apologies, but I'm just trying to clarify for myself and hopefully for our audience as well. Did we want to dig into more detail about how the solution actually works, or go straight into your case? Yeah. Okay, let's go into how it works.
So you're probably thinking, okay, well, that's a loaded gun, right? How do you validate numbers, Brad? How do you verify them? All of these different things go into that, right? Really what happens when you send us a phone number is we go through a process that we defined and we developed over the last 20 years. You're sending us a phone number. We're checking to make sure it's valid. What do I mean by valid? We're checking to make sure that an operator and a line type is provisioned to the phone number. If it's not, guess what? It's going to come back as a zero score, right? It's not valid. It's not reachable in any way. If you do anything with the phone number, it won't happen. So then, after it all checks out and we know that it's a valid number, we're looking through our fraud prevention registry, which is something we released very recently. There's been other webinars on it. We're looking to see if there's been any fraudulent activity with the phone number. And when I say fraudulent activity, I mean hard fraud activity. Like a bank reported this as part of a malicious account takeover. There was spoofing done with the phone number recently. There was something that was happening that makes this phone number in the greater scheme of fraud, right? So we're looking at that. If fraud does come back, we're sending you that back as a zero. You shouldn't be calling that. You shouldn't be texting that. It's fraud, right? Then after the phone number comes back and there's no fraud, we're looking at our own network activity. NetNumber has billions and billions of activities over the year with phone numbers. We see about 85% of phone numbers in our ecosystem on a regular reoccurring basis. So really what we're doing there is we're looking for positive and adverse activities that would make the phone number reachable or not, right? If a phone number ported away from its original operator and then was porting back in a certain period of time, that might not make the phone number reachable, right? If something was going on with provisioning with a phone number that would make the phone number not reachable, guess what? We're going to lower the score on that. So the score is from 0 through 5. The higher the score, the higher likelihood the phone number is reachable. So after we look through the network and we do our machine learning model, and we update the score, we know what geography the phone number's in. We know what operator it's signed to. What we will actually do is we will actually look to see if the phone number is covered in an HLR network. For those of you tuning in that aren't too familiar with HLR, that's your home location register that most 2G, 3G service providers use to check that a phone number is subscribed to before they send a message or make a call on a mobile line. We're looking to see if that's covered in our plethora of HLR networks and sources. If it is, we go ahead and query that during the number check process to see if the phone number is being reported as active or not active. If it's not active, obviously it's a zero. It's not reachable right now. If it is active, that will increase the score. So what we're really doing there is we've developed a machine learning model that's proprietary to NumberJack, and we're taking your phone number through that whole model of everything that we know about that phone number to try to give you confidence in whether you should message or call it. So that really applies to everybody. When you think about different types of customers, communication service providers, messaging providers, enterprises, other data providers that are doing modeling and scoring, CRM systems that make outbound calls. I mean, anybody making messages or calls really can use this. This tool is real time. It's updated as soon as you send us the phone number. So we do a 14-day look back on all activities with phone numbers. It's a little bit more aggressive than some other services out there. So it's fresh now and to the point, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Look, I have a couple of questions here, kind of unrelated. The first is you were mentioning, we talked about the score, the confidence index here.
Yeah.
So you would share that confidence index with me, and then I would internally with my organization figure out which level of confidence I'm happy with and which I'm not happy with. And based on that, I would decide which numbers I may want to allow, which numbers I may want to block. Is that sort of how it
Is
works?
yeah, and this is my baby. I work directly with clients and I help you, develop what the appetite for the confidence index is based on what internal data you have about a phone number.
Right.
Sometimes what will happen is if you're seeing a lot of ones because you're doing some sort of quick onboarding or OTP verification, there's some internal data that you might have to tell you what to do with a one if you're seeing ones come back all the time, right?
Right.
And so that's
And,
where we work with a lot of our clients, because this confidence index is one for all, but depending upon what you're doing, the results might be a little bit different. We do have additional helpful indicators that come along with the confidence index. We have reason codes. So if a phone number is a zero, we usually tell you why,
Mhm.
whether it's not allocated to a code range, whether the operator hasn't provisioned it, whether it's being reported as inactive or in association with fraud. So we're actually telling you that. But everything else, the 1 through 5, is up to you, and it
Right.
depends on what data you have.
And would
And
I maybe be balancing that out between my fear of false positives, or what would inform my decision around what level of confidence I want, like really rigid or a bit more flexibility around that?
yeah, it totally depends on your use case, right?
Yeah.
If you're saying, I'm deploying SMS messages for marketing and promotions might be a little different than I'm ensuring that messages go through my network to phone numbers outside of my network. That's probably a little different, right?
Yeah.
So, so yeah, so number check has the flexibility of that with a confidence index, and really where everyone is shining by figuring out how to understand and articulate it with their own internal data and using it towards their total ecosystem, right? Not just using it when they see a number once,
Right,
right?
right, right.
Using it as they're working with the numbers.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So we're talking a lot about the numbers. I have a question on that then. So,
Sure.
are your range, do you have numbers that are like a global range of numbers all over the world? What
Yeah.
markets are you operating? What does
Yeah.
that?
So let's talk about that a little bit, and that pivots directly to my next slide.
Oh,
So So really, for phone validation, we can do that everywhere in the world. We source directly number portability data everywhere that we possibly can, everywhere it exists, right? In areas that it doesn't, we've been doing code range for so long here at NetNumber that we really have it down pat. So what we really offer is any country in the world is covered for phone validation. That's their first use case to just make sure a phone number is valid, right? So that is score 0 is invalid, 1 is valid, 1 and above, right? So that can be done in all countries anywhere across the world. Then we have phone verification. That's where it gets a little tricky, right? There are certain countries that do not have standard protocol or practices yet in order to participate in verification, or we haven't sourced them yet and they're on a roadmap. So, phone verification currently exists in 56 countries across the globe and 53 countries partially, depending upon the operators in the country, right? There are some that have onboarded technology and services faster that we're able to integrate and acquire. And then there are others that just simply do not, right? Um, and for if you're using it explicitly for fraud verification, we have onboarded a lot of fraud signals in the United States, and we're working on global now. So this is a living, breathing service, and we started it a year and a half ago, and it's grown substantially. And another year and a half, who knows how much it's going to expand and bring the value, right? So this is really our coverage, So roughly every country, validation's covered. Roughly, we can give you visibility on about 108 countries for verification, uses in the confidence index. And then fraud verification right now is United States, but we are starting to source and we're evaluating globally. And so definitely look out on LinkedIn when we start getting some of those global sources. I will definitely be posting that in my network.
All right. So just a little bit of clarity around when you say growing. Apologies if this is a novice question. So when you say growing, when you're in a market in a specific country, does that mean that being in the market, you have 100% of the ranges of numbers in that market, or do you grow the ranges that you have in each market? And the second part of that question would be, I guess when you say growing, you're growing markets as well. So
Right.
each year you hope to be in more and more markets. Is that correct?
So little yes, little no. So what I
Okay.
mean by growing is the the foundation of phone numbers and numbering plans and everything has been established, right? It's not about that. It's more about the signals and data required to verify phone numbers, right? There's different types of data that you can use to verify a phone number, whether it's messaging or voice. And so what I really mean by that is technology and systems emerging and making that data available to use in our confidence index is always emerging. So that's what I really mean by growing.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification. So I had it a bit wrong in my head, so I'm glad that you
Yeah.
explained that. Cool. I think earlier you talked about HLRs. I was wondering if you could go back to that a little bit because I was wondering about the HLR lookup. I think some people in the industry use those to check if a phone number is accurate. How's like number verification better than doing that, right? How does that look?
Yeah, so the thing about the home location registry is it's not available everywhere and it doesn't always work everywhere. So what happens sometimes is if you look up a phone number in home location registry to determine if it's active or not active, you are usually using it to administer some sort of communication. Now, there are various operators across the globe that if you don't follow up with a communication, they block lookups for that specific operator in that specific country. So that's a kind of an example of a nuance. And it happens and you can get it unblocked, but you have to communicate about it. Well, what that does is it interferes with the stability of being able to use that service in that country with that operator all the time. So it's very fragmented. How number check is very, very different is the HLR lookup is only one aspect of that, right? We're looking at our network, we're looking at phone validation, we're looking at all kinds of different things and baking that into our confidence index so that when there are problems with the home location registry or HLR, as you called it, you know, you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. If you look back at this slide, really you know that you always have to block zeros, right? Ones through five are we know are valid numbers. The higher the score, the higher the likelihood based off of some of these things that I highlighted here on the slide.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I know that when we look on the fraud side with our members in math,
Yeah.
there's several complementary tools
Yeah.
that you can combine together to get a fuller picture of what's fraudulent and what's not. And it feels like what number check is doing is that a bit of that internally. So looking at different parts
Yeah.
to bring it together to have a score, an
Yeah.
accurate confidence score. All right.
Yeah. And that
Yeah.
kind of leads to our next slide, right? Which it's much more than an HLR query. We put it on the slide. We're just calling that out. Here's some of the use cases that have currently been adopted for number check. And when I say this, like we released number check about a year and a half ago. Um, we maybe started out with 10 customers. Now there's hundreds, right? Um, really this is what it's formulated or rolled up to or evolved to, which is it's kind of fun in product, right? You build it with a specific hypothesis and then you don't know what how or what it's going to be really adopted or the true value of it, right? Until you start working with those clients and get some feedback. So the first one is really about routing. As you can see on the slide here, you can block malformed, unallocated, fraudulent numbers, right? Well, what does that help you do? Helps you avoid unnecessary termination costs and reduce fraudulent traffic in your network, right? So if you're a service provider, if you do that, it's going to help you there. Customer onboarding and KYC. So really, we've heard a lot about all these mobile and digital identity services. You can get subscriber data through KYC matching. We even offer it at that number. Um, the the challenge is some of those services are expensive, right? They're expensive and they require consent and they put friction in your onboarding. Well, what number check can do is it can help you detect whether or not you want to go through all of that early on. If a phone number is not valid or not reachable, why are you doing that, right? And that kind of goes with the use of prevented, malformed, unallocated, fraudulent numbers again. But it really helps you screen it out. It helps you screen out some of those costs that you might otherwise query, right? It's cost effective. It's quick. If you don't have the phone number right with all of the other data elements, I would argue that you don't have it right to begin with to start your fraud investigation, you know? So
Yeah.
that's how it's kind of playing with customer onboarding and KYC.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I know at this point I'm pretty excited, and I'm sure our audience is. Maybe we can dive into some real world examples.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, go for it.
Yeah. So I'll just highlight the first one. This is a messaging provider, and forgive me, I just try to I don't I want to protect our customers' identity, right? And their
Of course.
strategic values. And so I kind of had to roll this up to a very simple flow, right? But basically, what was happening with this message provider is they were bleeding on undelivered SMSs. So any of you not messaging, basically, if you are sending an OTP or whatever kind of messaging business you're doing, you were paying per SMS transactionally. Sometimes, depending on the country, sometimes it's 1 cent. Sometimes it's half a cent. Sometimes it's a millicent. Whatever it is. What happens is you pay whether or not that message goes through. And this specific provider had a lot of messages that weren't being delivered. In fact, they were suspicious. They find out after the fact that they were not delivered. They were at about maybe 28% messages not delivered. They were extremely high volume, right? So if you're paying 1 cent per message and you have, let's just say, 1 billion messages a month, which is probably a standard number when you think about the amount of messages that go through, you know, 20% of that is a lot of money, right? That's like, what is that, $2 million?
Yeah. Too much money. Too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what really we did is we dug into their process, right? We already knew that we could help them validate phone numbers, right? We really dug into their process, right? And we were able to see where the user message started, and we were able to take to query number check, which is kind of my first box there, is valid. If it's not, they reject the message before they pay for it, right? And then we discovered some internal data that they've had that had to do with when they saw the message last, uh, or when they saw the last time the phone number was used in their network. And then we migrated basically our confidence index with their last seen index for phone numbers and wrote a rule around it. So if they haven't seen this phone number send a message in the last 5 days and it didn't score above 1, then they would reject the message, right? So what we really did is we created a way for them to mitigate sending ineffective messaging, right? What what happened with that as a total result of all the phone numbers in their ecosystem? We detected 12% invalid phone numbers of their total phone numbers. So when you think about how much money that saved them, if they were at a $2 million loss, we just at least shaved it in half, if not more, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, we identified a lot of fraud on their network that they didn't know about, so they could take appropriate action on whoever was administering those messages.
Wow.
So that helps. In the States here, Nick, some of us see some of these beautiful FCC fines coming out.
Yeah.
Helps address that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or reduce exposure at least.
Yeah.
Um, and then and then they noticed that their platform improved on running because they were terminating bad phone numbers and users faster, right? So they were getting more of that net true successful traffic than all this other junk that they're having to action around that was weighing down their platform.
Right.
So really what it did is it helped them, performance wise. And they had a lot of inefficient processing modules. And I'll tell you, when we dive into the data and they start saying, when we start hunting for their internal data to plug into the confidence index, when they're reviewing that data with me in the process to get there, they always identify inefficient processing in their own platform infrastructure. So they actually identified stuff while we were on the phone. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome, right?
Crazy. Yeah.
They were able to, maximize efficiency and reduce cost.
Yeah.
So,
No,
so
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry. This messaging provider has been up and running with this process now for about 5 months, and they've just seen such a difference.
Yeah.
They're blocking fraud. I feel like my contacts there, everybody's happy. We check in every month, and they're just excited for what's next with number check.
I mean, I was mentioning earlier, and I apologize if it feels like I'm beating a dead horse here, but I know our members are very concerned about artificially inflated traffic, AIT,
Yep.
and it feels like this applies a lot to that because what we're seeing as fraudsters using invalid phone ranges, number ranges, or spurious numbers to generate inflated traffic. And it's never terminated because it's not, they're unassigned ranges, right? So it feels like this would exactly
I see exactly. This is a similar use case in
yeah, yeah.
a different field, right? Yeah.
And the hyperscalers are getting killed with one-time passwords this way, right?
Yeah.
And we're seeing again, I hear it every day from our members. We're seeing people, brands moving away from SMS for one-time passwords because they've lost so much trust because there's so much AIT and other activity happening on one-time passwords. So again, super useful to understand how this solution works and what it can address. Yeah. Do you
Yeah,
have? I'm
that
seeing case.
that kind of dives into our case two,
Yeah.
which was actually a hyperscaler.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, and it was very much so that, Nick. So this, and I'm calling it an enterprise. It's a hyperscaler, though. They offer social media services and e-commerce marketplace, financial services sector. It's extremely global, extremely fast paced. Have their hands in a lot of different honey pots, so to
Mhm.
speak. Well, what was happening is they were getting an aggressive amount of fake profiles created. Like after doing identity checks and all of this, and they were sending over 1 billion OTPs per month, which is a lot of OTPs. And basically, what was happening is some of the fraudsters were going in and if a phone number, if they had access to a phone number, could do an OTP, they would do it, and then they would change the number, and all of these different things were happening. One of the financial services tools enables transfer of money. So, we have suspicion that that's what was really under attack. And the payment information in the e-commerce place, and maybe even just some of the social media information that they offer. Um, so really what we came up with for them, to mitigate this is the new user, when they would create a profile and provide a phone number, we just simply, again, we plugged in number check to evaluate it, right? Is it valid or not? If it is, they're just transmitting the OTP, and then they start using their KYC processes. So what it did is it cut a lot of static out of their KYC processes. And again, that can kind of go hand in hand with AIT. That's
Yeah.
probably one of the very many things. But really what it was is it was a quick and dirty way to say, look, you're sending me this phone number. Do I even want to mess with you or not? Right? And what really that happened what happened is, again, an OTP, you pay per OTP, regardless of whether it goes through or not. What it
Mhm.
did is it resulted in them saving about $150,000 a month on OTPs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it reduced, they noticed a significant reduced fraudulent profile creation by 11%. Again, they terminated bad users faster. Um, they created a full process to refresh to ensure hygiene. So when anything changes on a profile now, they query number check to make sure the phone number is still valid and still reachable. If something changed with the person, maybe something changed with the phone number, right? Well, they're using those different confidence index scores to kind of help them streamline how they engage and communicate with their existing customers, and to look for things that they might need to verify on the other side, right? Something changes with a phone number, it's very possible that something changed with something else that might be subject to your KYC.
Yeah. I mean, it's a win-win-win situation. It creates better customer experience because obviously customers are calling in and complaining when, uh, you know, when they're seeing potentially fraudulent activity on their phone, saving money for enterprises, even saves money in terms of customer service, right? Because angry customers call, they're not calling the operator, they're usually calling the brand, right? To say what's going on, why am I getting this message from you? I shouldn't be getting it, or they get angry at the brand if they've been spooked, if they've been
Yeah,
the victim of fraud,
some
right?
sort of attack or brand
Yeah, yeah.
impersonation.
So, so it improves customer experience, saves costs on like operational costs from the customer experience, customer operational side as well.
Yeah.
So for me, it just these feel like win-win wins. This is, I was remiss at the start of the webinar. I probably should have told our audience to put questions in the chat. I'm going to check it soon, but I'm sure that there are questions there. Please feel free. Uh, uh, at, Ask us questions, put them in the chat. Brad will probably take a look at those after the webinar and get back to you at some point with some answers, or even during the call, during this call, before the call ends, if you can.
And, always everyone reach out on LinkedIn, totally responsive. If you have questions or you're unsure on what to do with phone numbers in your ecosystem, like that's my job is to help look through everything that I can and help you figure it out. So feel free to reach out. My team is growing. I'm building a whole entire team on data solutions. And so it's really important for us to help you guys maneuver and get you the right data that you need to solve the problems.
Perfect. This has been really informative and super interesting. And thanks again, Brad, for giving us this overview. I really appreciate it. I feel like I've learned a few new things today, so that's been good for me. I'd like to wish everyone a nice rest of their Thursday and a nice weekend that's coming up, I guess. Thanks again to you, Brad,
Yeah.
and speak to you soon.
Yeah, thanks everyone for attending and thanks for having me. It's always fun to hop on one of these with Mobile Ecosystem Forum.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.